Hello YouTubers, so we're back and I wanted to say we're going to be taking this stencil, we're going to be marking this leather and cutting it out. We're going to be making a trifold, but we're going to change the pocket design to fit what our customer wants, what he's asked for. Because when I went to this car show, I went to a large car show this weekend that had over 2,300 cars. It was called Ducktail. Beautiful car show. And the guy saw my trifolds and he was all excited. But he's like, after he looked through them all, he's like, man, I really been looking for one like this. And I said, well, I don't have one, but if you'll contact me, I'll make you one. So I gave him my card, and when he contacts me, I'll find out what kind of leather he wants to use. And between this last build and this build, I've already done a couple of the modifications, and so I'll already be pretty good at them. And then so that way his wallet will come out just fine. So anytime a customer asks you for something you know you're going to have to modify, the best thing to do is to get your idea in your head, put it on paper, or if you've been doing it long enough and you've got it pictured in your mind's eye, go ahead and putting it together and building a couple and seeing how they come out. That way, by the time you're ready to do theirs, you've already got some experience. Okay, so the first thing I always do on our wallets is cut out the exterior and the interior, and we cut out the card slots secondly. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to put these off to the side, and I'm going to put these off to the side over here. And then I'm going to take our Catalina leather. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over here. And I'm going to get it marked up. So stand by. I got to move some stuff around. And I have some other Catalina leathers to make some other kinds of these wallets. I have this color that I'm going to be making a wallet out of with you folks. This will be the next one on the project board. And then I have another surprise for you folks. And it's going to be a shiny glazed brown that I'm going to be making a wallet with. So let's put these aside. We'll do those next. But for right now, I'll just put these in my chair. Put these over to the side. And as always, like I said before, I always like to mark the leather that I'm using put a weight there, kind of hold that down. Don't want to scratch that too much. Pull this forward here. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and take this and get it ready. Get my pen. Just make sure we get this in the back here where you can see what's going on. See if we can move the camera up a little bit. There we go. Okay. So we're going to be making these all out of about the same weight of leather. Now, since I have a little bitty piece down here that hangs off, rather than waste this, because as you can see that, there's a piece here, and there's a piece cut out here. I know I said we normally start with the back pieces, but we can go ahead and cut out a couple of our end pieces that are going to go here. Okay, so I'm going to snuggle this thing up here. We're going to go ahead and draw it in. Our pin. Since we're going to have one on this side, one on this side, but we want this to go the opposite direction, we'll flip it over. And so since we're going to flip it over to put it on this side, then we'll flip it over and mark it like so. So anytime you want to use the same piece for the opposite side, you just flip it over. Okay? Makes sense, but a lot of people miss that. They go, hey, I didn't get the left side or the right side, or, you know, and the guys making the pieces for you are like, just flip it over and you'll have your other side. Kind of gives you that duh moment. Okay, so we got one each of those. Put that back over here. And then we're going to want to do our two sections that we'll do our hidden pockets. Okay, so we'll have a hidden pocket here on this side, one in the middle and one on the end. So we need 3 of these. So we'll do this one, right? Go ahead and mark this one. And you'll notice that we're keeping all of our pieces the same way because there's a grain on here. And even though you don't necessarily see it, you will see it eventually. And the grain does run a specific way. So if you were to take this piece and put it this way and then turn it that way, and then did something crazy and then did another one that way, and you put them together, the one this way is going to have the grain running like this, and it will look different. And so you want to make sure that your pieces are all the same way when you're cutting them out, so that you know your grain's either running up and down, back and forth along your pieces. And even though some of it may look like a marbled look, it still has the grain in there, and it's very easy to see when you have one piece like this and one piece like that. Not all, but on most. So it's best to get into the practice of trying to keep them the same. We'll go ahead and do this other one. This one's going to be a little bit off camera here. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark this a little off camera rather than moving everything. You notice I did buy some. I bought what they call a gooseneck for my phone, and that allows me to connect it to this table and allows the phone to look down upon my work surface, and I can move it around. Of course, so I bumped it earlier and you saw it shake because it is free standing. Okay, so I did 2 of these, and I need to do 1 more. And I'm going to come back here, probably come back here, because I want to try to keep everything, try not to get it too high up. Try to keep, when you're cutting, try to keep your lines of your cuts running as even as you can. That way you don't run into a piece where you have only this half of the leather in case you got to cut a longer piece out or something like that. You'll have enough leather to do that. So you got to kind of start at one edge and go across and cut, come back up, go across and cut, so that you're leaving yourself the length of your leather in case you have a project that's down the line that may be a little bigger. Because if you took everything here and just cut it straight up, then you're going to lose that much of everything, and then it shortens it, shortens it, shortens it, and then sometimes you could run into a situation where you'll run out of usable leather, but you'll still have leather left. You notice I said usable leather because maybe your projects maybe have wallet size pieces, and then all you have is, 3/4 or 7/8 leather size pieces, and then you're not going to be able to use it, and you'll have to wait until you get little bitty things like key fobs and stuff like that that sometimes sell. At Christmas time they sell the best, but sometimes they don't sell at all, because really in today's technology and world, key fobs are kind of going by the wayside. So there's 3 of those, 2 of these, and I need 1 of these for the middle. And then I'm going to need 1 of these. So I'll probably go ahead and put this piece here, like so, which is next to this piece, and then we'll cut. So it'll leave this area, which then that area could cut a couple more pieces like this in the future. And then we'll lay our big piece out, and then we'll lay another big piece out. And that'll give, because you always got to think about, how am I best utilizing my leather? Am I utilizing it to the fullest potential? Now you always got to leave space in between your pieces of about 10 millimeters. And that's, you're just always going to have some waste. You can't stack it where it's going to be totally on top of one another and try to cut it right down the middle and use this line for this piece and that piece, because the line's going to get crooked at some point or whatever, and then it's not going to come out right. So you always got to leave about a 10 millimeter gap here in between your pieces. Okay, so always keep that in mind, and that's going to be your off fall. All right, so we got our 3 pieces, we got our 3 hidden pockets. Now we're going to go ahead and cut our outside of our wallet. Again, leaving this edge, because a lot of times on the edges, they will use these edges to clamp your leather with. And those clamps will have little indentations, because when they hang the leather, they clamp it on the sides, and then they hang that leather. And so usually the very edge of the leather, at least for the first 10 or 15, maybe 20 millimeters, is generally not very usable. And when they figure up how much leather they should give you when you order a particular weight, they always give you extra, because they know that they're going to have the ends, the edges clipped, and you're not going to be able to utilize the fullest of the hide. So they always give you a little bit more to kind of compensate and make up for things like that. Okay? So there's that. And then we're going to come way down here, which you can't see. Way down here. Let's see if I can get the camera to go. I'll see that down there. Way down there we go. Get the camera from rocking. And we're going to cut this piece. So our last piece was right here. So we've got this area down here. So we can pull this down into this area here and cut it, which leaves this gap here, or we can pull this over, but then that's going to leave all of this area and all of this area. So you can see, if we position this here where we'd have enough to cut, we'd have this much and this much all the way around. But if we come down here like so, and these edges right here are pretty good, so it's not damaged a lot. So I've looked at it. We can look at that and see. You can see it's not damaged. Okay. We'll be utilizing a good portion of our leather, and we're only going to have this little area here. And so this is going to be a much better area to consume by cutting it like this. And so sometimes you have to look at, how am I going to cut this that's going to allow me to continue getting the most yield out of my leather in the end. And that's what it's about. So you always want to try to get your most yield. And sometimes people get a new set of leather and they're just like, I got a whole roll of this stuff. I don't care about yield. But then the thing is, after you do several projects and you really love the leather, and then all of a sudden you run out of it and you're like, oh my gosh, if I had this little piece here and that little piece there and this little piece here and that little piece there, and I had them all together, I could cut a whole piece out of that and I could finish that project, or I could do another project with it. And you always kick yourself in the behind for that. So it's always best to think ahead, think of what you're doing, look and find out, if I use this way, my yield will be better because I'm only going to have this much and this much off fall, which I could still use a key fob here if I want to make a key fob, or a pair of earrings that my wife does a lot of earrings. I could cut a couple of leather earrings out for her, or something like that. Whereas if I bring this up here, then I'm going to have all of this and all of that, and I'm going to have to think of a lot more smaller things that I would have to use to cut that out of, even if I could do that. And if I could, it's still going to be leather that I'm not going to be able to use for my projects, right? So that's what you want to do, is to try to maximize your yield on your leather the best you can, okay? So now with all that cut out, we're going to go ahead, and the next thing to do would be to take our knife and gently, we could just go ahead and cut this line here, and then 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 take this out. It's kind of a stair step, and still leave this yield attached to this leather, which is what I think I'm going to go ahead and do. Or some people would just, instead of trying to get too neat with that, they would just go ahead and start here, and they would freehand cut and come down, come down, come down, come across, and cut that out, because it's going to be easier to handle this off of the big roll than it is on the big roll. Because when you're trying to turn this and you've got this big roll here, it's getting on the edge of the table, and you take a chance on bending it or damaging it or scratching it or dragging it across the table. So you're better off trying to take your pieces that you're going to cut and get them cut, and get your leather that you're preserving off the table, so you don't take a chance on damaging them while you're cutting your new pieces out. And it makes it a lot easier too to cut these pieces out, especially if we start trimming things down and we've got a 10 millimeter area here. We could just cut right down the middle here, and then we would have these little sections, and all we have to do is just trim, and then we're just going to have little bitty off falls coming from our leather. Whereas when some people, even if they do the machines where they put the leather under there and then they put their cutters, which I have a few of those, and then take your 4-ton machine and punch it out, and you do the next one, the amount of off-fall you have there will far exceed the amount of off-fall you'll have here. So it's all about managing your leather, your off-fall, and everything while you're doing your projects. So it's a lot of stuff to think about as time goes on, but it makes sense, and you'll kind of figure it out as time goes on.